As always, I'd really appreciate it if you would take the time to subscribe to my channel. Hopefully, it'll help me get a publisher interested in my book. And if you like what you hear, please share it with a friend. In this video, I'm sharing my thoughts on volunteering, specifically volunteering for kids 18 and under. Volunteering as an adult is a completely different issue. My views here are all geared towards children. In my book, I devote an entire chapter to this subject based on how important I believe this topic to be. This issue becomes even more important when trying to raise an ICD adult because it combines so many elements of ICD development. Based on the title of this video, Volunteering Done Wrong, you may guess that my opinion of volunteering is not the norm. However, if you make it through this entire video, I believe I can get you to better understand how volunteering should not be approached, to benefit not just your child, but those in need, those we volunteer for. I believe the number of school-aged children volunteering has drastically increased in the last 20 years. Many school teams and clubs now have volunteering requirements. Colleges expect their applicants to detail the types and number of hours spent volunteering during high school. Volunteering has become a necessity to admittance to many colleges. It's frowned upon if you didn't participate in some form of volunteering during high school. The rise in volunteering among high school students has led to a corresponding decrease in their time spent with other activities. It only makes logical sense. If a high school student has, say, 20 hours of discretionary time a week, and now they're spending an increasing amount of that time volunteering, and something else has to give. The ever-increasing pressure to succeed, that is, getting into the right school, is resulting in students almost exclusively focusing on only those activities that will give them a leg up on a college application. That approach, in my opinion, is horribly short-sighted. Parents have shifted from preparing their children for life to preparing them for college. Let me say that again. Parents have now prioritized preparing their children for college rather than preparing them for life. I believe that is a huge mistake. If you haven't watched my video, The Boundaries of Their Abilities, I recommend you stop this video, go watch that one first to help set the stage for my thoughts on volunteering. Now, as I described in that other video, the latest statistics show that millennials and Gen Zs have grown increasingly disillusioned with not just their work lives, but their lives overall. I believe that's the result partly because of a shift in focus from working a part-time job in high school to overemphasizing volunteering activities. Why is it that those born roughly between 1980 and 2000 suffer from such higher rates of alcoholism, drug use, anxiety, suicide, general mental health issues that weren't there with previous generations? What is the root cause of so much disillusionment among those generations, the millennials and the Gen Zs? As a parent of a young child, you should be very concerned about this issue. I personally am a rather antisocial person. I prefer my time quiet and by myself over time spent in the company of others. Even with my relatively tiny social sphere, I personally know far too many parents whose children have fallen into those destructive outcomes I just mentioned. I believe there is a direct relationship between the decrease in emphasis on getting an actual job in high school and the increase in emphasis on volunteering on the mental health of those generations. I believe that although volunteering has the potential to benefit the volunteer, the way in which these volunteers work results in the eventual frustration and disillusionment these young adults experience once they enter the real workforce. Stated bluntly, I believe that volunteering did more harm to these individuals than good. Let's start by understanding what volunteering is and what we have historically believed is its positive effect on kids volunteering. Volunteering is the giving of your time for free to a cause. Volunteering at its essence is about sacrifice, giving of yourself for the benefit of others. It's noble and commendable, but unfortunately has nothing to do with the style of volunteering that has been prevalent over the last 20 years. Volunteering has become a necessity. It's a necessary check the box that it's void of the real meaning of sacrifice. As I said earlier, there are sports clubs that require their athletes to volunteer a certain number of hours each month, quarter, season to remain on the team. School clubs make volunteering a requirement. Colleges basically require it of their applicants. Worse, yes, it gets worse. Volunteering has become a competition. Look how many hours I volunteered last semester. Look at what a wonderful person I am because of the effort I put into volunteering. Is that the attitude you want to develop in your child through volunteering? Competition? I mean, competition in sport, I get. Competition in volunteering, that's just disturbing. The main purpose of asking young people to volunteer is to help them develop characteristics like compassion, empathy, patience, altruism. That's just to name a few. But the sad fact is that modern volunteering is creating more of a what's in it for me rather than a sacrifice for thee. The modern attitude towards volunteering is far from the essence of traditional volunteering. I believe that modern volunteering is failing our children. Modern volunteering is damaging and ultimately destructive to our kids. Parents are often dissuading their children from getting a part-time job in high school and encouraging to volunteer in order to have the appropriate number of hours they need for a school club, to be a member of a sports team, or to fill in a box on a college application. Prioritizing volunteering to the exclusion of working an actual job is the opposite of developing an ICD adult. If you want to raise an independent, confident, good decision maker, you need to take the time to consider whether or not your child should volunteer, and if so, what form that volunteering should take. Generally speaking, even if a young person volunteers for the wrong reasons, I wouldn't have a problem with that because of the benefit to so many worthwhile causes. Unfortunately, in my opinion, the actual result is that modern volunteering has a long-term damaging effect on those volunteers when they eventually enter the workforce. Now, let me explain what I mean when I say volunteering is not working. That is, it's not a job. In my opinion, too many young people are confusing volunteering with working. These young people are effectively replacing working with volunteering. Working and volunteering are fundamentally different. I would go so far as to say that they are diametrically opposed. If you've ever volunteered somewhere, you've probably seen some of the following. Volunteers can show up 15 or 20 minutes late for their shift and still get a "we're glad you're here" when they arrive. Volunteers can take numerous breaks to enjoy the snacks and drinks provided by the organization. Volunteers often do more standing around and talking than doing their assigned task. And lastly, volunteers are generally thanked profusely and told to congratulate each other on their sacrifice at the end of their shift. Now, ask yourself if any of those examples would occur at a real job. Showing up late, taking numerous breaks, expecting congratulations for just doing your basic job. Not only do those things not happen at a real job, if an employee did engage in some of those behaviors, they're likely to get written up or some other form of workplace punishment. My last example, being congratulated for just doing the basic job you're being paid for, I'm not aware of any employers that do that. I believe modern day volunteers have come to expect this treatment from their employers when they reach the real workplace. Young people come to believe that they will be applauded for just showing up, even if they show up late. They come to believe that they can take a break whenever they choose, no matter how much work needs to get done. They think they will be congratulated for their mere presence rather than for accomplishing their tasks, their assigned tasks, above and beyond the boss's expectations. These young people are entering the workforce and quickly becoming confused and disillusioned because they're foolishly expecting their work environment to mirror that of their volunteering experience. A young person who does not experience a real workplace environment in high school doesn't ever get a real part-time job is missing a fundamental and critical aspect of normal development in our society. Watching a coworker get blasted by their boss for showing up late for something is commonplace in most every high school student level job. The frustration of seeing a coworker slacking off and then getting caught and reprimanded by the boss is an extremely educational experience when working a part-time job in high school. Getting fired. Seeing the first time a young person watches someone get fired and escorted out of the facility, that's extremely uncomfortable to witness. But it's a rite of passage for every worker. Seeing something like that in a volunteer environment is unheard of. Volunteering is not work. It bears little resemblance to real work and can never replace the essential development and experience your child will be exposed to while working a real high school job. Now, consider this issue from the perspective of getting paid for your time versus volunteering. If you need to make money, as the vast majority of us do, performing at a real job is critical to maintaining your position. Most employees historically understand the necessity of overperforming to be eligible for a promotion or a raise. Your mindset while on the job, working for a living, is the polar opposite of your mindset when volunteering. The very nature and purpose of volunteering has been distorted by making it a mandatory required activity. Let me repeat that. The very nature and purpose of volunteering has been distorted by making it a mandatory required activity. As colleges have come to expect to see volunteering on an application, and society at large prioritizes volunteering over working for young people, over the past 20 years, these young people have developed a bastardized sense of what to expect in an actual job. The benefits of volunteering that normally accrued to volunteers in the past no longer exist. It's no longer about sacrifice and giving of yourself to a higher cause. It's now a look at what a good person I am advertised to the world. As a parent, what's more important to you? That your child be viewed as wonderful while volunteering in high school, but increasing the likelihood of them suffering from the ever-increasing mental health issues they're likely to experience when gainfully employed? Or is your priority giving your child a proper balance between meaningful volunteering and developing the understanding about what it means to survive and prosper in a real work environment? Now, of course, volunteering is not the sole reason so many millennials and Gen Zs are suffering from some of the highest rates of mental health issues in modern times. The modern approach to volunteering is merely one example, but in my opinion, it's a big part of it. I'm trying to shine a light on the mistakes parents make while their children are growing up that often haunt their children deep into their adult lives. Modern volunteering is inherently flawed and only adds to the potential dismal future so many individuals from these generations are facing. In decades past, it was more likely that you did not know your friends or neighbors for volunteering. Volunteering was a personal activity, more often not spoken of than shared. Parents may have encouraged their kids to read to the elderly at the local nursing home or help their daughters become candy stripers at the local hospital. Today's volunteers, they post about their volunteering activities even before they get home. It didn't happen unless it happened on social media. Look at me, 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 me. Isn't that the opposite of the essence of volunteering? Do you really believe these young people are getting a sense of meaning and sacrifice from that? Or are they volunteering for the likes? What if you told your high school volunteer that they were forbidden from sharing their volunteer activities with anyone? I would hate to hear the answer to that question. You'd probably get a puzzled look and the statement, then what's the point? Think about that for a second. I see a direct correlation between the frustration and disillusionment felt by so many millennials and Gen Zs when entering the workforce and their confusion regarding the reality of working for a living. Current volunteering distorts the reality of real work to the detriment of these kids. Raising an independent, confident, good decision maker is about you as the parent honestly evaluating the things you encourage your kids to do and taking the time to determine if what you are encouraging is actually in their best interest. Their best interest, not anyone else's, and definitely not yours. And in this video, I've outlined my concerns about modern volunteering and the basis for those concerns. In my next video, called Volunteering Done Right, I'll go into detail about the things you ought to consider when encouraging your child to volunteer. That's right, I do believe volunteering is the right thing to do. My son volunteered, but it wasn't about checking a box on a college application. As I said in my first video, raising an independent, confident, good decision maker isn't difficult, but it's exhausting. The question is, how much work are you going to put into your parenting efforts to do everything you can to prepare your child for life as an ICD adult? Thanks for listening.